last month, I'm sure most of you will recall that we spent a great deal of time, both Tony and myself, extensively covering the Republican Party platform. We examined both what it said as well as the process by which it was adopted. And of course, there were some major issues on both of those fronts. Well, now with the Democratic National Convention taking place next week, we want to take a look at the Democrats' platform, a draft of which has been released by Politico, and we want to see how it compares. Well, joining me now to discuss this, and quite frankly, where do we go from here, is Brent Keilen. Brent is the Vice President for Strategic Initiatives here at FRC Action. Brent, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always great to have you.
Hey, thanks, Jody. Good to be with you again.
Well, listen, we've got a lot to deal with here, and let me begin by just stating afresh that the draft that has been obtained by Politico of the Democrats' platform, it's not final, but nonetheless, it does provide a pretty good idea of where the Democrats' priorities are. So, what, as we look at this, what jumped out at you?
Well, there's some really interesting things, Jody. And like you said, we'll know for sure next week when the Democrats have their convention and formally adopt this platform, what the final version says. And we know that this draft was actually released a few days before current President Joe Biden dropped out of the race. So, if nothing else, that's going to have to be updated in their platform because that was looked at extensively. But if you look at this, one of the things that jumped out at me initially was just the length of the platform. The GOP trimmed its platform to 16 pages coming out of Milwaukee in July. This current platform draft, as it stands, is 80 pages. So it's about 5 times the length of the GOP platform. So as you can imagine, it covers a lot in those 80 pages, broad spectrum of issues. But one of the things that I did, and I'm still reading through it word for word, have not read all 80 pages yet, but did do some searching on key sections, used kind of that Control F search feature on my computer. And it struck me the word counts on specific issues, because that, of course, lets you know what some of the issues they're really focused on are, what they really care about. If you look at issues like abortion, for example, I think the word abortion is mentioned 13 times. Reproductive rights is mentioned, I think, 14 more times. If you look at the term LGBTQI+, I think that's mentioned about 35 times. Climate change or climate in the context of climate change is over 70 times. But I could not find one mention of the word God in the platform draft. I also couldn't find one mention of the word Christian in the current draft. And that actually really surprised me, because not only does it tell you where the priorities seem to be right now, that's an issue they faced back in 2012. And that platform, the Democrat platform, actually made it all the way to the convention without any mentions of God in it. And it was kind of this big issue. And they actually had to take some very unusual measures on the floor itself to rectify that and add a mention of God back in. So it looks like maybe we'll be seeing the same thing play out this year. I don't know, but definitely very telling, I think, in terms of what the priorities seem to be here.
Yeah, very revealing information. And I recall, as we were talking last month, even the Republican platform basically reduced God to an adjective and only mentioned a couple of times. But even then, it's quite like our God-given rights or that type of thing. So on both sides, that's pretty alarming. But this is, when you look at what you just mentioned, climate and the LGBT, abortion, there's no question whatsoever in my mind, and I'd like your opinion on this, how hard the Democrats are going to try to make abortion a national issue going into this election.
Would totally agree with that, Jody, and especially if you look at how it's covered here. Just that issue has 2.5 pages, its own 2.5 pages in this platform draft, and it's very interesting to look at how many angles they come at this issue from, and how bold they are. They leave nothing to guessing on where they stand, what they want to see passed. For example, a few examples here. They call for the reinstitution of Roe v. Wade. They want a legislative way to do that, which obviously imposed abortion on all 50 states for almost 50 years there. It calls outright for the removal of the Hyde Amendment, and that's something that surprised me a little bit, and I wasn't shocked because this is not a new call for them. We've seen this for the last number of years, but the Hyde Amendment just protects taxpayers from being forced to fund this in violation of their conscience. So it calls for the repeal of that. The Republican position, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people we've been seeing anyway, are promoting this as a states' rights issue. The Democrat Party platform draft does not list that as their position. It does not want states to even have the ability to protect life in any form or fashion. It actually goes after the states who have instituted any type of pro-life laws since the Dobbs decision. So I think there's no question about it, Jody. It's pretty explicit what they would like to see here.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because I do think it's an enormous mistake for Republicans to keep saying that this abortion issue is a states' right issue. It is not. I mean, in here, we're seeing that Democrats are going to make this a federal issue and force it upon states, and the Republicans need to wake up to that reality. I wish we had more time. I'd love to get your thoughts on the gender mutilation of children in the Democratic Party, their platform, also pornography in our schools, all this sort of thing. Just real quickly, we've got about 30 seconds. What else would you highlight real quickly?
Just a couple quick things, Jody, on some of the issues that FRC works a lot on. It explicitly calls for the passage of the Equality Act, which would be extremely detrimental to religious freedom. We've seen the parental rights issue become a really big issue over the last few years. The platform does talk about parents, but never really in the context of parental rights and wanting to make sure that those are safeguarded. So those were a few other things that really jumped out at me looking through this.
Thank you, Brent Keilen from FRC Action. Always great to have you on Washington Watch. Thanks for breaking this down, and I'm sure we'll have you back to discuss it more.
Sure appreciate it, Jody. Thank you.